What defines a religion? Is it faith, rituals, or perhaps belief in a higher power? And what about philosophy? Is it purely reasoning, logic, or a search for wisdom? Now, imagine Buddhism. Does it fall neatly into either of these categories? Or does it challenge the very way we think about both? Pause for effect, allowing viewers to ponder the question. This question has intrigued countless scholars, practitioners, and seekers for centuries. And today, we'll embark on a thought-provoking exploration to uncover the truth. By the end of this video, you might find yourself seeing Buddhism not just differently, but in a way that reshapes how you understand the ideas of religion and philosophy altogether. Reflecting on the journey so far, before we dive deep, let's take a step back and reflect on the journey we've been on so far in this series. Over the past 5 videos, we've delved into the origins, teachings, and profound impact of Buddhism, laying the groundwork for an understanding that is as enriching as it is transformative. In the first video, we explored the historical and cultural backdrop, a backdrop that gave rise to Buddhism over 2,500 years ago. Then, in the second, we followed the extraordinary life of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha, and his transformative path to enlightenment. The third video brought us closer to the teachings themselves, as we unpacked the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, principles that form the very heart of Buddhist wisdom. Our fourth video took us on a journey across continents and centuries, revealing how Buddhism spread and evolved into diverse traditions, each contributing uniquely to its global presence. And in our fifth video, we connected these ancient teachings to the modern world, discovering how they offer practical tools for finding balance, mindfulness, and meaning in our fast-paced lives. This series isn't just about learning history or philosophy. It's about unlocking the timeless wisdom of Buddhism and discovering how it can inspire, guide, and transform us in our daily lives. A new question: religion, philosophy, or something else? With that foundation in place, we now turn to a question that strikes at the very core of understanding Buddhism. Is it a religion, a philosophy, or something entirely different? This isn't just an academic debate. It's a lens through which we understand Buddhist teachings and how they integrate into our lives. Let's embark on this journey together, peeling back the layers of this profound tradition. By examining its spiritual practices, philosophical principles, and historical evolution, we might uncover something far more profound than a simple label. We might just unlock a new way of seeing ourselves and the world. 2. Defining religion and philosophy. To truly understand where Buddhism stands, we first need to explore the foundations of the concepts that frame this question. Religion and philosophy. What do these words really mean? And how do they shape our understanding of human belief systems? Religion, for many, is deeply tied to faith. It is often seen as a way to connect with the divine, a higher power, or the mysteries of existence. It's marked by rituals, sacred texts, and a sense of belonging to a spiritual community. It answers questions about the soul, morality, and life after death, questions that have been central to human thought for millennia. On the other hand, philosophy is grounded in reason. It seeks understanding through logic, questioning, and debate. Philosophers often approach life's biggest questions, like the nature of reality, the meaning of life, and the path to happiness, not through devotion, but through analysis and critical thinking. Philosophy provides a framework for examining existence itself, encouraging individuals to find answers within their own minds and experiences. Now, let's bring Buddhism into this conversation. At first glance, it seems to encompass both of these dimensions. It offers practices and beliefs that resemble religion, rituals, meditation, and teachings about enlightenment. Yet it also challenges us to investigate these teachings through personal experience and insight. Much like a philosophy, this duality is what makes Buddhism so fascinating and, at times, so difficult to categorize. It doesn't fit neatly into the definitions of religion or philosophy, and perhaps it isn't meant to. Instead, Buddhism invites us to step beyond labels, to explore its teachings through our own lens of understanding. By examining these definitions, we begin to see why the question of whether Buddhism is a religion or a philosophy isn't just about semantics. It's about perspective, how we approach the teachings, how we integrate them into our lives, and ultimately, how we understand the role of belief and wisdom in shaping who we are. 3. The spiritual aspect of Buddhism. Now that we've explored the foundations of religion and philosophy, let's delve deeper into the spiritual dimension of Buddhism, a side that often leads many to consider it a religion. For countless practitioners around the world, Buddhism is a spiritual path that offers connection, solace, and a sense of purpose. Its practices, such as chanting, offering incense, and bowing before statues of the Buddha, are expressions of reverence and devotion. These rituals create a sacred space where individuals can reflect, meditate, and deepen their connection to the teachings. Buddhism also embraces concepts that resonate deeply with the spiritual mindset. The idea of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, provides a framework for understanding life's challenges and impermanence. This is balanced by the aspiration for nirvana, a state of liberation from suffering and the cycle of existence. These teachings inspire hope and a sense of progress on a spiritual journey, offering a profound answer to the question of what lies beyond this life. The monastic traditions in Buddhism further highlight its spiritual essence. Monks and nuns dedicate their lives to studying and practicing the teachings, embodying values of simplicity, compassion, and mindfulness. For many lay practitioners, their presence serves as a guiding light, a reminder of the possibility of living a life free from the distractions and attachments of the material world. Yet, while these elements make Buddhism resemble a religion, they are not rooted in blind faith. Instead, Buddhism encourages practitioners to examine and experience these teachings for themselves. This emphasis on personal exploration is where the philosophical side of Buddhism begins to intertwine with its spiritual practices. So, is Buddhism a religion? From the perspective of its rituals, its devotion to sacred teachings, and its framework of spiritual understanding, the answer might seem clear. But this is only one part of the picture. To truly grasp Buddhism's identity, we must now turn to its philosophical core, the teachings that challenge us to think, question, and awaken. 4. The philosophical core of Buddhism. As we transition from the spiritual practices of Buddhism, let us now step into its philosophical heart, a realm where reason, reflection, and personal insight take center stage. At its core, Buddhism is deeply concerned with understanding the nature of existence and the human condition. The teachings of the Buddha were not presented as divine commandments, but as a guide for inquiry. He encouraged his followers to question, to test, and to experience the truths he shared for themselves, rather than accepting them on faith alone. This scientific approach to wisdom sets Buddhism apart and aligns it with the traditions of philosophy. One of the most profound examples of this is the Four Noble Truths. These truths, centered on the reality of suffering, its causes, its cessation, and the path to freedom, are not doctrines to believe, but principles to investigate. They invite each of us to examine our own experiences, to observe how attachment and desire create suffering, and to explore how letting go can lead to peace. This is not blind belief. It's an empirical method for understanding life and finding liberation. The Eightfold Path, 2, reveals the philosophical nature of Buddhism. It outlines practical steps for ethical living, mental cultivation, and the development of wisdom. These steps, right view, right intention, right speech, and so on, are not commandments but suggestions for a balanced, mindful life. They are meant to be practiced and tested in daily life, allowing individuals to discover their validity through experience. In many ways, Buddhism's philosophical teachings challenge the way we think about ourselves and the world. Take, for example, the concept of anatta, or non-self. It suggests that the idea of a permanent, unchanging self is an illusion, and that understanding this can free us from clinging and suffering. This teaching pushes us to question the very foundations of our identity, a hallmark of philosophical inquiry. Furthermore, Buddhism emphasizes interdependence, a principle that resonates with modern scientific and ecological perspectives. The idea that everything is interconnected, that our actions, thoughts, and even the smallest elements of existence are part of a larger web, is both a profound spiritual truth and a philosophical insight. This blending of ethical practice, logical inquiry, and profound insight is what makes Buddhism more than just a set of beliefs. It offers a framework for exploring the nature of reality and the human mind, making it a philosophy in the truest sense of the word. But even as we uncover this philosophical dimension, we realize that Buddhism doesn't force us to choose. It allows us to embrace both its spiritual and philosophical aspects, creating a holistic path to understanding and awakening. So, is Buddhism a philosophy? In many ways, yes. Its teachings invite us to reflect, question, and grow. But to stop here would be to miss the bigger picture. Because Buddhism is not limited to intellectual exploration. It is a lived experience, a journey that transcends categories. To fully understand this, we must consider how Buddhism has evolved and adapted throughout history. 5. Buddhism through a historical lens. As we journey deeper into the identity of Buddhism, it becomes essential to view it through the lens of history. Understanding how this tradition evolved over time reveals its remarkable adaptability and the rich diversity of its teachings. More than 2,500 years ago, Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha, shared his teachings in the ancient kingdom of Magadha, located in modern-day India. These teachings, rooted in his direct experiences of enlightenment, were initially passed down orally. Over time, they were compiled into texts, giving rise to what we now know as the Pali Canon, the earliest record of Buddhist scriptures. In its early years, Buddhism remained concentrated in India. Communities of monks and lay practitioners preserved and practiced the teachings. However, as it spread beyond India's borders, Buddhism began to interact with new cultures, beliefs, and traditions. This exchange wasn't merely one of ideas. It was a fusion of practices and philosophies, resulting in the diverse schools of Buddhism we see today. For example, as Buddhism traveled eastward into China, Korea, and Japan, it encountered Confucianism and Taoism. This cultural interplay gave rise to Mahayana Buddhism, a school that emphasizes compassion, the role of bodhisattvas, and the potential for all beings to achieve enlightenment. In Tibet, Buddhism embraced the rich spiritual traditions of the region, evolving into Vajrayana Buddhism, with its intricate rituals, mantras, and visualizations. Simultaneously, Theravada Buddhism, the school most closely aligned with the original teachings of the Buddha, found its home in Sri Lanka, Thailand, and other parts of Southeast Asia. This tradition emphasizes meditation, monastic discipline, and the personal journey toward enlightenment, staying true to its ancient roots. This historical journey highlights a critical aspect of Buddhism, its ability to adapt while remaining true to its core principles. As it absorbed and integrated elements of different cultures, it never lost sight of the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path. Instead, these teachings became the unifying thread that connects all Buddhist traditions, regardless of their regional differences. But this adaptability also explains why Buddhism resists easy categorization. In some regions, it takes on the characteristics of a religion, with temples, rituals, and community practices forming its foundation. In others, it operates more as a philosophy or way of life, focusing on personal insight and ethical living. The historical evolution of Buddhism reminds us that it is not a static tradition confined to a single interpretation. It is a living, breathing path that continues to inspire and guide millions of people worldwide. And as we explore this history, we begin to see how Buddhism's ability to transcend cultural and temporal boundaries allows it to offer timeless wisdom to all who seek it. Now, with this historical perspective in mind, let us turn to the voices of those who have studied and lived these teachings. Scholars and practitioners whose insights bridge the gap between tradition and personal experience. 6. Perspectives from practitioners and scholars. With a historical foundation established, let us now listen to the voices of those who have studied, practiced, and lived the teachings of Buddhism. Scholars and practitioners alike offer profound insights that reveal the multifaceted nature of this tradition. Many scholars argue that Buddhism challenges the very definitions of religion and philosophy. For instance, the American philosopher Alan Watts once described Buddhism as a way of liberation. He emphasized its practical application over its doctrinal aspects. Watts suggested that Buddhism is less about belief and more about experiencing life with clarity and compassion. This view resonates with those who see Buddhism as a philosophy of living, a guide to navigating the complexities of existence with mindfulness and wisdom. At the same time, practitioners around the world often emphasize the deeply spiritual nature of Buddhism. Monastics, for example, dedicate their lives to meditation, ethical discipline, and the pursuit of enlightenment. Their practice is both a philosophical inquiry and a spiritual journey. It embodies the essence of Buddhism's dual nature. In their words, the path is not about choosing between religion or philosophy. It's about walking the middle way, embracing both dimensions in balance. Consider the Dalai Lama, one of the most recognizable Buddhist figures of our time. He often refers to Buddhism as a science of the mind. This perspective highlights the analytical and experiential approach inherent in Buddhist practice, encouraging individuals to test the teachings through personal experience, rather than accepting them on faith alone. Yet, the Dalai Lama also speaks of compassion, kindness, and the interconnectedness of all beings. These values deeply resonate with the spiritual aspect of Buddhism. For lay practitioners, Buddhism often serves as a refuge, a source of comfort and guidance in the face of life's challenges. Many describe how meditation and mindfulness help them navigate stress, cultivate inner peace, and develop a sense of purpose. These personal stories remind us that Buddhism is not merely an abstract philosophy or a set of rituals. It is a living tradition that transforms lives in profound and practical ways. Moreover, contemporary scholars continue to explore Buddhism's relevance in modern contexts. Some see its teachings on interdependence as a philosophical framework for addressing global issues, from environmental crises to social inequality. Others highlight its psychological insights, which align with modern understandings of the mind and behavior. This demonstrates Buddhism's adaptability and timelessness. These diverse perspectives, spanning the academic, spiritual, and personal, illustrate the richness of Buddhism. They reveal how its teachings can be interpreted and applied in countless ways, depending on one's context and needs. This flexibility is a testament to Buddhism's enduring relevance and its unique ability to speak to the human experience across cultures and generations. But as we absorb these insights, one question remains: does this complexity make Buddhism a religion, a philosophy, or something entirely different? To answer this, we must step back and consider the bigger picture, one that transcends labels and definitions. Let us explore this synthesis in our next chapter. 7. A unique synthesis beyond religion and philosophy. As we reflect on the diverse perspectives we've explored, one truth becomes increasingly clear. Buddhism cannot be neatly confined to the categories of religion or philosophy. Instead, it represents a unique synthesis, one that transcends labels and offers a path to understanding both the world and ourselves. Buddhism's dual nature allows it to bridge the gap between faith and reason, devotion and inquiry. On the one hand, it embraces spiritual practices that nurture the heart, rituals, meditations, and ethical precepts that cultivate compassion, mindfulness, and connection. On the other hand, it challenges the mind to question, analyze, and seek wisdom through personal experience. This balance is what makes Buddhism so transformative. It appeals to both our emotional and intellectual dimensions, guiding us toward a more integrated way of being. Consider the teachings of the Buddha himself. He did not claim to be a god or demand unquestioning faith. Instead, he described himself as a guide, offering teachings that individuals could test and verify for themselves. His famous words, "Be a lamp unto yourself," capture this essence perfectly. They remind us that the path to awakening lies not in blind belief, but in self-discovery and inner transformation. This synthesis also explains Buddhism's remarkable adaptability. Across centuries and cultures, it has taken on many forms, yet its essence remains unchanged. Whether practiced as a religion, a philosophy, or a way of life, Buddhism continues to resonate because it speaks to universal human experiences: suffering, joy, impermanence, and the search for meaning. It does not ask us to choose one perspective over another. Instead, it invites us to embrace the full spectrum of our humanity. Moreover, Buddhism offers a profound answer to a question that lies at the heart of human existence. How can we live a meaningful life? It teaches that true fulfillment comes not from external achievements or possessions, but from cultivating inner peace, wisdom, and compassion. This insight transcends cultural and temporal boundaries, making Buddhism as relevant today as it was 2,500 years ago. In this way, Buddhism becomes more than just a religion or a philosophy. It becomes a way of being. It provides tools for navigating life's challenges, fostering deeper connections with others, and awakening to our fullest potential. This synthesis is not a limitation but a strength, one that allows Buddhism to inspire and transform people from all walks of life. So, as we consider the question, is Buddhism a religion or a philosophy? We might realize that the answer is both, and neither. Buddhism defies categorization because it is not about fitting into predefined boxes. It is about opening ourselves to new ways of seeing, thinking, and living. And perhaps, in doing so, we discover something far greater than labels can capture. With this realization in mind, let us now turn to how Buddhism's teachings can be applied in our daily lives, offering practical tools for finding balance, joy, and meaning in a complex and ever-changing world. 8. Practical implications for modern life. As we bring this exploration to a close, we now turn to the most important question: how can Buddhism's teachings enrich our daily lives? In a world that often feels overwhelming, where stress, uncertainty, and division seem to dominate, Buddhism offers timeless tools for navigating life's challenges with clarity, compassion, and wisdom. One of the most practical applications of Buddhism is mindfulness. This simple yet profound practice encourages us to be fully present in the moment, to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment. In modern life, where distractions are constant, mindfulness serves as a refuge, a way to reconnect with ourselves and the present reality. Studies have shown that mindfulness reduces stress, enhances focus, and even improves emotional well-being. This makes it a valuable tool for both personal and professional life. Ethical living is another cornerstone of Buddhist practice that resonates deeply in the contemporary world. The principles of right speech, right action, and right livelihood from the Eightfold Path encourage us to live in a way that minimizes harm and promotes kindness and integrity. These teachings remind us that our actions, no matter how small, have the power to create ripples of positive change in the lives of others. Compassion, a core value in Buddhism, is perhaps more relevant now than ever. In a time marked by social, political, and environmental challenges, cultivating compassion helps us bridge divides and foster understanding. The Buddhist practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation, offers a way to expand our capacity for empathy, starting with ourselves and extending to others, even those we may struggle to understand. Buddhism also provides a framework for embracing impermanence. This concept can be difficult to accept in modern society. We often seek stability and control, yet the reality is that everything is in flux. By understanding and accepting impermanence, we can learn to let go of attachment and find peace in the ever-changing flow of life. This perspective not only reduces suffering, but also helps us appreciate the beauty and preciousness of the present moment. Perhaps the greatest gift of Buddhism is its invitation to awaken. Awakening is not an abstract or distant goal. It is the process of seeing the world and ourselves with greater clarity, of living with intention and authenticity. It is about breaking free from habits and beliefs that limit us, and stepping into a life of purpose, balance, and joy. As we conclude this video and reflect on the journey we've taken through this series, let us remember that Buddhism is not just a set of teachings or practices. It is an open invitation. It invites us to explore, to question, and to transform. It reminds us that the path to wisdom and peace is always available, right here, in this very moment. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. If you found value in these teachings, we encourage you to revisit the previous videos in this series, and stay tuned for the final 2 episodes. Together, let us continue to seek wisdom, cultivate compassion, and walk the path toward awakening. Until next time, may you be well, may you be peaceful, and may you find joy in every step of your journey.